another with Elizabeth Taylor when she was 15 years old. And you know, most of these only sell for a few dollars. You know, some go for a little bit more, but they're very reasonable. And we used to have at the store a wall where we'd have a few hundred of the more famous lights hanging up. And people would stop and stare at that wall, sometimes an hour, half hour, just sort of lost in thought and memory. They loved it. For Napoleon.
No, it's a mess.
It's
very old.
I would agree with
My
that.
senior project is still in there.
The thing is that this book in really fine condition sells for $50 to $100.
Is that right?
But in this condition, it's
Oh, right.
and this book is almost always in poor condition, just because of the size and the shape of
Yeah.
it. No, it's not usually this bad, but
No.
but in this condition.
The pictures are wonderful, though. You think people would want to frame those or something?
Well, no,
They're
because
beautiful.
people don't like black and white, and so
Oh.
they don't tend to frame it. And also, although Napoleon's popular, the type of picture that they would frame in Napoleon tends to be these large color,
Right.
because that's what people, this style of picture hanging on a wall doesn't sell that well right now.
Darn.
Well, is he was a professor of constitutional history in constitutional law. Well, I would imagine if some of his students wrote a paper on constitutional law, and then he wrote comments and corrections and plans and ideas and thoughts in the margins, those would be worth a fortune. Because especially where constitutional law so much involves him being president, so there are things that can be, but that's not the type of thing that most people would even keep. You know, so the trouble with these is that what you realize when you start looking through this is that they had the morning issue, the afternoon issue. So when you look at this and you say, well, gee, there must be 6 months of, you realize that there's maybe a week or two.
Right, yeah.
I don't know what the Sunday funnies look like in here, but I guess they don't.
Yeah, I couldn't find them.
Then
Yeah.
they don't have that in there, and maybe the Times didn't. And the other thing is that you're not getting into Pearl Harbor or that,
Right,
if
so
it
that
had gone.
timeframe a little bit,
Right,
yeah.
so that, there, you know, it might make a good show and tell sometime.
Right.
But there's no great,
Okay.
that value might be $50 maybe.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, you get a call that really stands out. And again, this was a while ago, I answered the phone, hello, Brattle Book Shop, can I help you? A lady, again, older, very thick Irish brogue, and the first thing she says is, President Kennedy slept with me. Now, you have to admit that gets your attention. She stopped and waited for it to sink in, and then she went on to explain that she had worked for the Kennedy family. She had been his nursemaid when he was 3 and 4 years old. He used to fall asleep in her arms. So he did sleep with her, but maybe not what you first think. And what she had was a whole series of handwritten letters from the president. Now, presidential letters of any type are valuable. Handwritten letters, particularly from a later 20th century president, are very hard to get, very scarce, and very expensive. She wanted to get an offer on them. This is a classic.
I know.
And it's not in great condition. It doesn't have the dust jacket, but it's probably still worth about $500, something like that. With the jacket, it might be worth a few thousand. But of all the Lovecraft books,
I never
this
find
is.
that listed anywhere, nobody.
They do.
They
What about
list
the, in front, that's August
August
Derleth?
Derleth. He was the,
Okay, well, if that's who signed it,
That's Saugus
then
Derleth,
then
yes.
I would say maybe that would double the value. So maybe $750 to $1,000
Thank you.
in that range. But I mean, if and Lovecraft collectors tend to be passionate about
very,
their
very much
collectibles.
so.
And if the condition had been a little better, and I might even be being a little conservative on that, but if it had the dust jacket, it would definitely be $2,000 to $3,000. So one of the things that happened with Grant is that he was impoverished. He didn't have any money, and this was supposed to be his retirement. Mark Twain was the publisher, and he actually died just before the book came out. So when you're showing me here that it says,
he
this
did not
volume
sign
is
it.
dedicated to the American soldier and so
I
on,
figured it was the
basically what he did is he wrote this out once and then they printed it and published
That's what
it
we
in
thought.
every copy.
Okay.
But if he had actually come back from the dead,
Too bad.
signed it,
That's
it
funny,
really
though.
would
That's
have been a
really-
valuable
yeah.
book.
Yeah.
But actually, this was a bestseller. It did allow for his wife's retirement in fairly good comfort. But what actually, another interesting story about this book is that the country, after this happened, felt that it was embarrassing to have a president who was basically impoverished.
Right.
And then they quickly instituted the presidential pension. So there are
Oh.
certain, he was the 17th or 18th president. So there's about 27 people who probably owe him a lot for being impoverished and then having to write a book because they've got their pensions.